Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Lorraine Eldrenkamp, and I'm happy to be here presenting with my colleagues Robin Anderson and Misty Farber. We are from the Oklahoma State Department of Education, Office of School Support and Improvement. And today we look forward to sharing this information to districts across the state of Oklahoma and building capacity around balanced assessment literacy. As we think about our overarching intended outcomes for assessment literacy and these learning modules today, we hope to promote improved practice around assessment literacy, develop and deepen a common understanding of assessment literacy among district, school leadership, and teachers, allow time for you to reflect on the current assessment system within a district or a school to identify possible gaps, all to improve educational outcomes of students by promoting high leverage classroom assessment practices that coherently link together. Today, we will share with you resources and learning modules from the National Center for the Improvement of Educational Assessment, better known as the Center for Assessment. The intent is that these resources will support professional learning around balanced assessment literacy. This is Oklahoma's continuous improvement cycle with the guiding principle in the center of our work. All students can grow and all schools can improve. As we look at the steps in the improvement cycle, having a high quality balanced assessment system can be a lever to inform and impact key decisions at the district, school, classroom, and even the individual student levels. So as we get started, we ask you just to consider this. What does a high quality assessment system look like? And when you provide this training in a virtual setting, the group can share in the chat, and we'll just take a minute and ask you if you'd like to share in the chat your reflection. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on just for the sake of time. So today is just the first part of a larger series of assessment learning modules. Most of the modules and resources are for classroom teachers, as you can see here in the green boxes on the slide. The state, district, and school leader modules are in blue. And today we're going to share the introduction information, and we will go through the recorded module on balanced assessment systems, and that should take us about 30 minutes. So at the end of our introduction session today, we should be able to explain the background, purpose, and use of the modules, describe the way the modules are organized and how the materials can be used with educators. And then you'll be able to locate all the resources, including the pre-recorded videos, slide decks, handouts, tools, and other resources. So Robin is going to share the next section of the introduction.
Thank you, Lorraine. Let's look at the background, purpose, and use of these modules. The events of the past year have changed the landscape of what school looks like across the world. We know this pandemic is not the first time that students have struggled with achievement gaps. These have been a pervasive aspect of American educational systems for as long as there's been school. This is one reason why developing a balanced assessment system is crucial. So I would like for you to just real quickly, you can either unmute and share, or you can type in the chat box what you would define as an achievement gap. Anybody want to share with us today? Well, the Center of Assessment defines achievement gap as the persistent disparity in academic achievement between minority and disadvantaged students and their white counterparts. And so when we think about COVID and we think about the loss of learning and the achievement gaps, there's different reasons for those. So we have to look at those in different ways, but both can be utilized when looking at next steps for effective teaching. The claim made in the learning modules is that by identifying student knowledge, skill, and understanding gaps in the midst of classroom instruction and assessment is a crucial aspect in solving the problem. Identifying where students are at is a crucial aspect to address with these learning gaps. So with students coming to us with different gaps in knowledge skills, it's important to focus on the problem. We know that assessments are designed in particular ways to collect evidence for one purpose and use. The four main purposes and uses of assessments are listed here. Assessments can predict if a student or school will meet a predetermined goal, such as the end of year exam. Another purpose of an assessment is to evaluate the outcomes of a particular program, curriculum, or policy. Assessments can also be designed for students to diagnose students' strengths and weaknesses and help identify educational services. And lastly, assessments provide teachers with information to modify or adapt their instruction to meet student needs. The discussion around the classroom assessment modules is centered around the idea that when assessments are designed to provide instructionally useful information to teachers, they are able to modify and adapt instruction to meet students' needs. So the question at the end of this slide reads, if instructional use is the priority, what is the possible solution space? In this presentation, we will provide possible ways to achieve this. If we are focusing on the characteristics of instructionally useful assessments, there are three characteristics that are essential. The characteristics to include are as follows. First, consider if the information gained is timely. Secondly, is the information or data acquired specific and granular? The grain size of information must be at an appropriate level. Do scaled scores and achievement levels meet this criteria? It does not. This type of assessment gives broad understanding of where a student is at, but it isn't enough data to help a teacher make specific instructional decisions to fill in those learning gaps. Lastly, instructional useful assessments are content specific to the information in relation to the enacted curriculum. It is paramount that the administered assessments actually align to the unit of instruction taught. Those components will verify whether or not the assessment is instructionally useful. As we investigate the solution space, one of the solutions here is to increase educator classroom assessment literacy. Teachers need guidance about how to use, select, design, and interpret classroom assessments to gather evidence of student knowledge, skills, and understanding to improve student learning. This concept, while it is not a new concept in education, is referred to as classroom assessment literacy. These modules are intended to build the classroom assessment literacy capacity of teachers and leaders. When investigating the solution space, it is important that we use the foundations of high-quality instructional systems. Effective instruction allows teachers to identify what students know and do not know. This provides the data needed to differentiate instruction to meet students' specific needs. All right, they talked about the zone of proximal development in the previous slide. And when we think about the zone of proximal development, the definition from Wikipedia was that the zone of proximal development actually has expanded and modified over time, and is an area of learning that occurs when a person is assisted by a teacher or a peer with a higher skill set. The person learning the skill set cannot complete it without the assistance of the teacher or the peer. The teacher then helps the student attain the skill the student is trying to master, and until the teacher is no longer needed for that task. I compare this to an exercise program. If you do the same exercise day in and day out, at some point our progress will plateau. Our exercise routine must push us to a point that may be uncomfortable. This is also true with learning. Teachers must assist students when the productive struggle of learning occurs. Let's look at the organization and design of the learning modules. This module is designed for state, district, and school leaders, providing the background, purpose, use, organization, and suggested models of rollout and implementation. The modules provide pre-recorded videos, handouts, surveys, and additional supporting materials for each learning module. The learning modules provide the pre-recording to help reduce the burden of expertise needed by district leaders. For each pre-recording that's 35 minutes or less, that can help teachers apply the concepts in the practice exercises and facilitate discussion about the content. There are also materials that anyone can distribute, tweak, or build upon to work for your district. Additionally, there are supports and supplemental resources provided for each learning module. The teacher modules are in green. The modules start with an overview and introduction of a balanced assessment system. Then there are 4 other modules aligned to guide teachers when deciding on the appropriate assessment. These are readiness pre-assessment, formative assessment, data-informed differentiated instruction, and summative classroom assessment. The last 2 modules are targeted to help pull all this new knowledge into actionable steps. Within the overview and syllabus, you will find a short list of intended outcomes for each module. Here's an example. After the formative assessment module, teachers will be able to describe what it is and is not, explain the features of high-quality formative assessment, and create a formative assessment relevant to the content or grade level using a provided tool. Now let's take a look at the overview and syllabus online. Okay, in front of you, you should see one of our Drive documents that we've created for you to help you navigate the modules on the Center of Assessment webpage. At the top, we have the tables of contents, which you can jump to different sections if you would like as you are preparing these modules for your teachers. We're going to just go down from the very top. It gives you an overview of what the modules can do. It also has a link of the series of learning modules that will take you straight to their page. And then where it says sign up here, we've noticed that the Center of Assessment has continuously been updating material for these modules. And once they do that, they have an alert that goes out to those that are signed up that will let you know that there are new materials ready for you to use with your faculty. And so this is a good way for you to be able to do that. We will be sharing this PowerPoint so that you will have the ability to click the links and access the information that we're sharing now. All right, and as we go down the page, this is where the learning objectives are for each of the different sections. We put them all together in one place just so it was very easy for you to review as you're thinking about where your faculty needs to start. All of us are probably in different areas or progress with balanced assessment system foundational knowledge. And so this will give you a great opportunity to decide where you need to start. And then we're going to come back up to the box underneath the sign up here. This is the box that Lorraine shared with you before. And I'm actually going to share with you part of the teacher section. Right now, we are doing the introduction for the state, district, and school leaders. And so what I would like to do is take you to the formative assessment page. Excuse me. Gonna need that to be bigger, huh? Okay. All right, so after you access each module, you're going to have a landing page that looks just like this. And just a moment ago, I described to you the different sections that are available on this landing page. We have the pre-recordings, we have materials, and then we have our supports. So in the pre-recording section, you're going to have the video that is narrated by the Center of Assessment experts. And so that's what we like about it, is that they actually are going to do the teaching, and you're just going to facilitate the time in which that learning is going to occur and help spur discussion about where you are currently in your building and where you want to go. There's also a slide deck handout where they can record all the information that they're learning throughout the video presentation and through your discussions. And then there are module materials. And of course, they've provided those slides again, but they have some tools as well. They have a couple of they have a formative assessment tool, and then they have an example so that you can see what that looks like. And then the survey for the formative assessment is actually a feedback form that they want you to have your teachers fill out anytime you actually present the video. That way they can make sure that the video is providing the information needed and that they can make adjustments and provide extra resources that you might need as you progress through these modules. And then down at the bottom, we have additional supporting materials. And within those materials, you're going to find all kinds of things. You're going to find case studies, you're going to find articles, you're going to find just research that has been provided. And I wanted to share with you one of the examples that we have from the links below. And it actually is going to take you through what is a formative assessment, how can you use an observation tool to help you with formative assessment, and then it's going to go down and even break it into rubrics so that you can look at what the different dimensions of formative assessment are. And once you kind of have an understanding of what those rubrics look like, at the very end of this section, they're going to show you what an action plan looks like. Because we know that if we intend on accomplishing anything, we have to have a plan. And in order for that plan to work, we have to have buy-in from our teachers. And the more they're involved in that action plan, the better results we will have. And so getting that down on paper and then monitoring it throughout your implementation phase will ensure that formative assessments are implemented successfully within every classroom. Okay, so back to our presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Misty for models of rollout and implementation.
Thank you, Robin. So let's review the suggested models of rollout and implementation of the learning modules and a few ways of how you can deliver the modules within your own district or school. The learning modules do not have to be completed in order, but they do coherently build on one another. It is recommended that teachers discuss the content and complete the practice exercises with their colleagues, whether the modules are delivered in person or virtually. And the 4 models of rollout and implementation are not an exhaustive list and could be mixed or matched. So as you're thinking about the rollout and implementation of the modules and how they can be implemented in your school or district, it is important to consider the importance of the teacher's capacity to absorb and apply this information they will learn in each module. So Rome wasn't built in a day. And this is a statement that to think of when deciding on how best to approach these learning modules, and consider what would work best in your school or district, where teachers would absorb the information presented in the modules. They would also discuss the learning with their colleagues and apply the information learned. So these modules can be presented in many ways, such as over the course of a school year, over multiple years, or simply picking and choosing the modules based on the learning needs within your school or district. So let's review the next 4 slides of the different models of implementation. The first suggestion provided is the virtual, mostly asynchronous model. And this model provides a window of time for teachers to watch the pre-recorded learning modules and then discuss the content and complete the practice exercises alone or with their colleagues. After the discussion, the leadership team would host a question and answer session to discuss the content questions, practice exercises, and implementation facilitators and barriers. The second suggestion provided is the virtual synchronous model. And this model is designed to have the teachers watch the pre-recorded learning modules on a specific day and time and have them discuss the content and complete the exercises with their colleagues. Then the leadership team would host a question and answer session to discuss the content questions, practice exercises, and implementation facilitators and barriers. The third suggestion provided is the flipped classroom model. This model is designed to have the teachers watch the pre-recorded learning modules and complete the practice exercises on their own. Then the leadership team would provide a day and time that they would bring the staff together, either in person or virtually, to discuss the content, practice exercises, and application to their own classroom. And lastly, the fourth suggestion is providing teachers with a live professional development and using the slide decks to present the materials during the in-person sessions. After the session, teachers would be provided time to discuss the content and complete the practice exercises with their colleagues. Additionally, the PLCs would be designed throughout the year to provide ongoing discussion and application of the content with their grade level and content area teams. Let's view an example of a calendar a district could use to implement the balanced assessment modules. So this particular timeline begins in the summer, allowing for a completion date of November 2021 for all modules to be delivered and completed. This calendar provides the links to the videos, as well as provides different models of implementation. This timeline could also begin at the beginning of the school year in August with a completion date of January. Here is another example of a timeline where a district may choose to break the learning modules into a year-long professional development schedule. This timeline begins in June and ends in February. However, you could also begin these modules in August and end in April. Again, these modules are provided with the link to the videos and provides one learning module each month. There are many ways that you can deliver the learning modules, and these are just two examples that may work for your school or district. After reviewing the different implementation models, let's look further into the balanced assessment systems, where you will have the opportunity to watch the first video of the series that is intended for district and school leadership teams. As you watch the video, there are two reflection questions that are embedded in to provide time to collaborate and share with your leadership team. Again, this video is similar to the other videos where there is collaboration time built into the modules for teachers to discuss the content and reflect on the questions that are asked.
Hello and welcome to the Classroom Assessment Learning module entitled Balanced Assessment Systems, High Quality District Assessment Systems. This module is part of a classroom assessment series developed by the Center for Assessment. My name is Carla Evans, and I, along with my colleague Jerry Thompson, created these learning modules to serve as a resource to support professional learning around assessment literacy topics. Jerry and I work for an educational nonprofit known as the Center for Assessment. The center's mission is to improve the educational achievement of students by promoting improved practices in educational assessment and accountability. You can find hyperlinks to our website on this slide. As mentioned previously, this module is part of a larger series of classroom assessment learning modules. Most are for classroom teachers, as you can see in the green boxes on this slide. However, this module is for state, district, or school leaders. We hope to add to these learning modules over time, so please check back regularly. You can also sign up for email alerts. As soon as new modules are available, we will email you and let you know. The website to access the learning modules is on the bottom of the slide. At the end of this module, you should be able to, first, describe balanced assessment systems and the key features that signify such systems. Second, describe the main uses for state standardized test results, district assessment results, and classroom assessment results. And finally, evaluate the quality of your district assessment system and identify assessments that can either be removed, added, replaced, or revised. The module contains the following sections: background on balanced assessment systems, purpose and use of assessment information for multiple layers, and then how to put the pieces together before we give you a practice exercise and then wrap up and provide a module survey. So let's start first with the background on assessment systems. We want you to stop first and reflect on the following question. Is over-testing an issue in your district? Why do you think that is or is not an issue? What evidence supports your thinking? So if you're doing this module with a colleague, you can discuss your thoughts with them. If not, just go ahead and write out your reflection. In either case, please pause the video now and reflect on this question and then hit play when you're done. The problem with practice that this module addresses is that a random and disconnected collection of district assessments with no guiding purpose promotes incoherence, inefficiency, and over-testing. As taken from Achieve Student Assessment Inventory for Districts, they say that, quote, across the country, educators, parents, and students are saying that there is too much testing in our schools, and that testing is taking valuable time away from teaching and learning. These concerns are legitimate and merit attention. School district officials have the opportunity to respond to concerns about over-testing by leading a conversation among educators and the broader community that directly addresses the amount of testing and points the way toward a more coherent, educationally sound approach to assessment. And that's the end of the quote from Achieve's Assessment Inventory. It's not just about over-testing though, right? It's not just about the amount of testing time it takes away from teaching and learning. It's about the fact that doing so without any guiding purpose or use for that assessment information makes the system incoherent and inefficient. So we want to help you thoughtfully design or modify your district assessment system so that the assessments work together in a coherent system that produces actionable and meaningful data and information that support a range of decisions that you make over the course of a week, a month, or a school year. In other words, the key takeaway is that the collection or system of assessment matters. So how can your district create a balanced system of assessments that support teaching and learning? Well, as states, we know one thing for sure, right? A collection of assessments does not entail a system any more than a pile of bricks constitutes a house. You can see here on the slide, you have the pile of bricks on the left, and then you have a purposefully designed school building on the right. The call for balanced systems of assessments is like the purposefully designed school building, and it's not a new concept. The 2001 National Research Council report, Knowing What Students Know, really crystallized this appeal for balanced assessment systems and provided the following definition. Assessments at all levels, from the classroom to the state, will work together in a system that is comprehensive, coherent, and continuous. In such a system, assessments would provide a variety of evidence to support educational decision-making. Assessments at all levels would be linked back to the same underlying model of student learning and would provide indications of student growth over time. So you can see there that the key emphasis is on providing assessment information to support a variety of educational decisions. So the assessment information needs to be thoughtfully collected, but also thoughtfully used. So we start first with asking the question, what are balanced assessment systems? As stated on the previous slide, right, a balanced assessment system is one in which the assessments from the classroom to the state house are not working at cross purposes with each other, and the assessment within any given layer, whether that's the state, district, or classroom layer, provide the necessary information to support better decision-making for specific purposes and uses at that layer. However, if you Google balanced assessment systems, you'll notice that many define balanced assessment systems in a different way. For example, many assessment systems based on the types of assessment that make up the system, whether those be formative, interim, or summative. The problem, in our opinion, with that approach is that these assessment types, whether formative, interim, or summative, are just like tools like a hammer, a screwdriver, or a drill. They are agnostic to what you are building or what you're fixing. So we have to talk about purpose and use for assessment information, as well as the multiple layers of the system that supply assessment information. So the triangle graphic you see on this slide shows the 3 layers of an assessment system: state, district, and classroom. The main purposes and uses of assessment information at each layer are to the left, color-coded in terms of correspondence with the layer. You'll notice that the purposes and uses of assessment information differ at each layer. The state layer serves primarily an accountability and equity function. The district layer supplies an aggregate look at students across classrooms or schools within a district, which would include not only interim and benchmark assessments, but also common district assessments. And the classroom layer provides the most fine-grained information for teachers for formative and summative classroom use. The second building block details the features of balanced assessment systems. Balanced assessment systems have specific features that, if present, support turning a collection of assessments, a random pile of bricks, with multiple layers into a system that documents student achievement towards meaningful learning targets for a specific purpose or purposes. These 5 features are listed on the screen, and I want to take a minute to explain each one. The first is comprehensive. Comprehensive means that the assessment system allows students to demonstrate their understanding in a variety of ways. So for example, a student may be asked to reproduce factual knowledge and apply skills, as well as transfer their learning to a new or novel situation. Indicate their conceptual understanding in writing or through an oral presentation. Students may be provided the opportunity to choose how they want to demonstrate their knowledge and skills within a certain menu of options. Students may be asked to create or produce something. There are numerous ways students can demonstrate their understanding, and a balanced assessment system is one in which the full range of opportunities are present to students, rather than students always having to demonstrate their understanding through, for example, a 100-question multiple choice paper and pencil test. Comprehensiveness also means that the system reflects the breadth and depth of the state content standards. One way to ensure all standards are taught is to ensure that all standards are assessed, and assessed at the depth of the proficiency expectations detailed in the language of the standard. The second feature of balanced assessment systems is coherence. Because assessment is the process of reasoning from evidence, the assessment system should align with modern conceptions of how students learn and deeper learning goals. Deeper learning is defined by the 2012 National Research Council report, Education for Work and Life, as transfer of key knowledge and skills from one context to another. This slide goes into a deeper dive about coherence. So transfer, or deeper learning, as we were just discussing, is facilitated when there is alignment, learning goals and objectives, teaching and learning activities, and the feedback and assessment mechanisms used to inform the curriculum and instruction. The third feature is continuous. This means that evidence of student learning and progress is continuously collected over time, not just at one point in time, such as at the end of the year, or maybe at just 2 or 3 points during the year with respect to the assessment system as a whole. Assessment information should be collected based on the time sequence that best matches the purpose of the assessment, how it was designed, and what will be done with the information and by whom. The last 2 criteria are efficiency and usefulness. Many parents, students, and stakeholders are complaining about over-testing in schools. Instructional time is valuable, right? And assessments that take up precious instructional time should be useful for decision-making and non-redundant. The assessment should not be given, in other words, and then that information not used for its intended purpose. We are now transitioning to the second block of this presentation, the purpose and use of assessment information from multiple layers. If you think back to the triangle presented on an earlier slide with the 3 levels of a balanced assessment system, state, district, and classroom, we are now going to take a deeper dive into each of those levels and discuss the purpose and use of assessment information relevant to school and district leaders at that level. So on this slide, we're talking about the state assessment layer. And this layer is designed to provide a window into students' equitable opportunity to learn the content standards, which serves a primary equity and accountability function. In other words, test came about alongside the standards-based reform movement because it was impossible to sit in every teacher's classroom across the country every day, every year, to ensure that they were teaching students the state content standards. Instead, states create standardized tests, which surveys the broad domain of the grade and subject area's state content standards. And then the results of that assessment is used to hold schools and districts accountable for student proficiency and growth on those standards, as well as closing of student achievement gaps and other reasons as well. Given this assessment design and purpose, what can district and school leadership do with the data? We may list questions a leader can, many questions a leader can use to make sense of the data, the state data, and use the resulting answers to inform resource allocations. It may be curricular decisions, staffing decisions, program evaluation, purposes, and so on. Additionally, it's important to explore the extent to which the results from the state test seem similar to results from district level assessments. In other words, are multiple pieces of evidence pointing in the same direction, and you can triangulate the data at either a classroom or school level to provide more confidence in the story the data is telling. If not, right, it may be because that one or more of the tests are not aligned as well with the state content standards, whether that be the depth or the breadth, or what's actually being taught in classrooms, the enacted curriculum. A final point on this slide. District and school leaders should stop pretending that this coarse-grained achievement level and scaled score information provided by the state test is useful information for informing instruction in classrooms, so within a unit of instruction. Remember, state tests serve a primary equity and accountability function, not an instructional function. The information is not fine-grained enough, relatable to the enacted curriculum, or provided in a timely enough way or at multiple time points over the course of the year for teachers to use that information to change their instruction when they're teaching a unit in meaningful ways. The district assessment layer is designed to provide school and district leaders with actionable data they can use to direct resources to support student achievement. There are multiple purposes for assessment information at this level. For example, a district may want to predict student proficiency on the end of year state test, so they purchase a commercial interim assessment. While one could argue school and district leaders have more reliable and valid information with respect to that purpose by looking at the students' last year state test results, some districts decide to purchase commercial interims to monitor student growth over the year. They give it in the fall, the winter, and the spring, for example. School and district leaders may also use universal screening tools to identify students who will need additional supports or interventions to reach grade level proficiency standards. Some districts may create or select common or benchmark assessments aligned to their curriculum that monitor student learning across classrooms and schools within the district during the school year. And there's other purposes as well. Typically, any one assessment is designed to serve only one purpose and use well. Let me say that again. Typically, any one assessment is designed to serve only one purpose and use well. So though it's likely that you'll find that within your school or district, you're using the same assessment, district layer assessment, for multiple purposes, that's likely not how that assessment was designed. That's important to keep in mind when you're trying to make sense of the results and triangulate findings. So what can a district or school leader do with the data? We identify 3 ways that a school or district leader can make sense and can act on the data provided by district level assessments. First, examine the extent to which the results from various assessments are similar so that you can put more confidence in results that are confirmed by multiple measures. Second, use the information to identify broad areas of strength or unfinished learning that can be identified from the assessment results. Given the design of the typical district layer assessment, there's likely only 2 or 3 questions on any given subdomain, such as fractions. But it may serve as a signal that there is a broad area of need across students that could then be explored further. And finally, a school or district leader could use the district assessment results as a signal or early warning system to identify students who are not demonstrating progress from fall to winter to spring. This could be used to flag students for further follow-up and discussions with teachers about progress. One important caution here is to be wary of over-interpreting subscore data, which is the reporting categories you sometimes see on interim score reports that break down the scaled score into a smaller content area chunk. So for example, in math, I referred earlier to fractions. It may also be in math algebra, number sense, measurement and data. Those are all subdomains or subscore categories. As mentioned previously, these subscores are only based on a few items, so they're not reliable enough to take instructional action or to take with complete confidence that if you gave the student the same assessment again, that they would have the same resulting score, unless you see that those results are corroborated by other assessments that are designed to gather more detailed information about that subdomain. Additionally, interim results in general, so I'm speaking in general here about most interim assessment designs, that they're not designed to provide instructionally useful information. So be wary of asking teachers to make sense of the data and use it for instructional purposes. Most interims are designed to predict student achievement on the end of the year test, the end of the year state test, I should say. The value of district assessments is that because every student is in a given grade or subject area, for example, in the district may take the same assessment around the same time, the district can aggregate that data and have a look at student progress and proficiency across classrooms and even across schools multiple times a year. However, if that data is not used to change any decisions or inform any decisions at the school or district level with respect to resource allocations, additional supports or interventions, or other curricular program evaluation purposes, then a school or district leader should, in our opinion, think long and hard about the usefulness and efficiency of the district assessment layer information, given that a state test could supply many such similar information as predicting how a student's going to do on the next end of year state test, for example, albeit that that's only at one point in time. And now to the classroom assessment layer. Classroom assessments are designed to provide teachers with actionable data that they can use for planning and for classroom instruction to support student achievement, as well as to report on student progress and proficiency to parents with grades in particular. So classroom assessments are typically divided into formative and summative classroom assessments. Formatives help teachers monitor and adapt instruction in real time, support and scaffold student learning, as well as foster student agency by allowing students to take ownership of their own learning, set their own goals, monitor their own progress. Summative classroom assessments evaluate student achievement, typically at the end of a unit of instruction, and teachers use that information to report on student achievement, as mentioned previously, to parents and to students. While classroom assessment information is not useful at the district level per se, it could be used at a school level. Let me give you an example. So a school leader may ask teachers within their building to show them a student's body of work or their portfolio of work so that they can see evidence of student progress and proficiency in actual student work samples. A principal may want to look at this information to get a general sense of the extent to which students are expected to apply higher order thinking skills, strive for deeper learning, apply 21st century skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, self-direction, and so on. Additionally, a principal can use the portfolios of student work in cases where parents may be complaining about student grades or questioning what is happening at the classroom level. So in addition to teachers being able to use the portfolios of student work and to use summative and formative classroom assessment for their own purposes, it's also the case that school leaders may be able to use this data for actionable purposes as well. So now we're going to switch gears to discuss ways to put the pieces together and ensure that you have a high quality district assessment system. So we start with a reflection question. Using the 5 characteristics of balanced assessment systems discussed above, so coherence, continuous, comprehensiveness, efficiency, and usefulness, we're going to ask you to discuss or reflect on the following questions. In what way or to what degree do the district or school required assessments promote a balanced assessment system? So if you're not doing this module with colleagues, go ahead and write out your response and then hit pause on the video while you do so and then hit play when you're done answering this question. In terms of applying the material in this learning module, how do you as a district or school leader know if the system is working well? How do you put the pieces together and evaluate if you have a random collection of assessments like the pile of bricks on the left, or a balanced assessment system like the purposefully designed building on the right? So we're going to briefly discuss two ways to know if the system is working well: district and classroom assessment system audit. If you think back to the way we define balanced assessment systems and the graphic with 3 layers, state, district, and classroom, we have selected these auditing tools and examples with respect to the district and classroom layer, given those are in the control of district and school leaders. Please note that these are just examples, and they're not all the ways a district or school leader could know if the system is working well. These audits are intended to facilitate discussions about the features of balanced assessment systems and the ways the collection of assessments in the district and/or classroom layer may need to be changed or adjusted to support a high-quality system of assessments. So for the district layer, you can see on the left, the audit examines the number and purpose of district, and in some cases school, if that's applicable, required assessments over the year, and the extent to which the assessments support their intended use and the features of balanced assessment systems. At the classroom layer, the audit examines the number and type of assessments over the course of the year and the relationship of those classroom assessments to the depth and breadth of the state content standards and the features of balanced assessment systems. The goal with the auditing information for both layers is the same: add, eliminate, or revise assessments based on the findings. So in the next few slides, we go into more detail about each of these audits and show you tools you can use. Before doing that, however, one important point is that assessment systems are nested. For example, classroom assessments are nested within district assessment systems, just like these nesting dolls on the slide. Therefore, it's important to examine the quality of both layers, because if you don't have a high-quality classroom assessment system, then it definitely affects the quality of the district assessment system. Let's start first, however, with talking about the district layer. This slide shows one example of a district assessment system auditing tool. This is Achieve's Student Assessment Inventory for school districts. This assessment tool is aligned with the features of balanced assessment systems discussed previously. The website in the yellow call-out box at the bottom of the screen provides many additional resources for district leaders. So not only is the inventory tool there, but there's a guidance document, information for school boards, as well as examples of focus group protocols and completed inventories from different contexts. We recognize that there are different district assessment system auditing tools you could use or you could design. The purpose of including this deeper dive into Achieve's tool, which is what's on the screen here, is to show you how you can connect the features of balanced assessment systems to the auditing tool you either design or you select. So showing this alignment may even help your district or school simplify the tools out there, as all the ones that I've seen are very complex and time-consuming. So with that said, this slide contains screenshots of Achieve's assessment inventory for districts. You'll notice there's about 25 questions for each district required assessment. Some of them, however, are just factual and they won't require investigation. In terms of alignment with the features of balanced assessment systems, the tool probes information related to each of the 5 criteria, as well as other extraneous information. Districts could go deeper with respect to the features of balanced assessment systems if they want, and that will be made apparent as we go through these questions. So the first highlighted box investigates alignment to the state content standards. Since this is an interim and benchmark assessment with a mini summative blueprint, which means it's designed to be similar to the state test, the test likely measures the breadth of the state content standards, but it's unclear if it measures the depth, which relates to the comprehensiveness criterion. The extent to which the purpose of the assessment matches the use of the assessment relates to the coherence criterion. You'll notice that for this particular assessment example, the districts responded, yes, district users use the assessment for its intended use, but educators do not. However, the questions in this yellow box do not fully address coherence or the extent to which the assessment is aligned with the enacted curriculum, and instruction or to the model of learning undergirding this district's teaching and learning. That would require follow-up investigation. In terms of the usefulness criterion, the tool specifically asks, to what degree do users of the assessment find it useful or not on a 1 to 4 scale? So district staff find that this assessment predicts performance on the end of year state test, and they rated it as a 2 or somewhat useful. It's unclear what district staff do with that assessment information as they're not asked. So for example, do they allocate resources differently, push in additional supports and interventions, maybe investigate the curricular materials, or other program evaluation purposes? As expected, given that the educator use was not aligned with the purpose of the assessment, educators report that they don't find the results useful to inform their instruction. A district can then weigh that information against the cost, which is $19 a student, and the efficiency of the assessment, which is about 150 minutes or 3 50-minute class periods, for example, twice a year. This provides information on the extent to which the data is collected, not only continuously over time, but whether it's also efficient. Overall, you can see how asking these types of questions of all the district required assessments could help district and school leaders strive towards balanced assessment systems, where the pieces are put together systematically and thoughtfully to serve pre-specified purposes and uses for the assessment information. In other words, the district or school leader knows in advance how they're going to use that information to make decisions or change decisions or inform them. Assessments can be added, eliminated, or revised based on the findings of audits such as this. Now we're going to move to the classroom layer. So this slide shows one type of classroom assessment system audit, a classroom assessment map. In this case, it's for grade 3 math. So teams of grade level teachers can create these assessment maps, which are analogous to curriculum maps. And that's a key leadership role that a school or district leader could perform, is to help bring teachers together across schools or even across classrooms within a school to create these assessment maps. Assessment maps list only the summative classroom assessments. You'll notice that all the grade 3 math state content standards are listed down the left-hand column. Months of the year are across the top. Time could also be demarcated based on trimesters, quarters, or some other marker of time. The summative classroom assessments are color-coded to indicate the type of classroom assessment design. Short summatives are in gray in this figure, performance-based assessments in green, and unit tests in yellow. So these 3 types of assessment design are just examples. You wouldn't necessarily need to use these, they're just examples. School and district leaders can use the maps alongside teachers to evaluate the quality of their classroom assessment systems using the same 5 criteria used to evaluate the quality of the district assessment systems. So for example, teachers and school district leaders can look at each map independently, but also examine for vertical and horizontal coherence. Vertical meaning across grade levels, such as across kindergarten to grade 12, and horizontally meaning within grade level or grade band, but across content areas to see what do they notice. Are students assessed with assessments that probe deeper learning, such as performance assessments, which gets at the depth of the state content standards? Are there clusters of standards that are not assessed at all over the course of the year in a particular grade or subject, which gets to the breadth of the state content standards? Depth and breadth just discussed relate to the comprehensiveness criterion. Additionally, how would a student experience the assessment system from kindergarten through grade 12? Are teachers approaching their classroom assessment systems in fundamentally different ways or with similar philosophies? What model of learning undergirds these philosophies and approaches to assessment, which relates to the coherence criterion? Our students provided multiple opportunities to demonstrate mastery or proficiency over the course of the year, which represents the continuous criterion. How are the teachers using the information gleaned from these summative assessments? In other words, is the information useful? If not, are there assessments that can be eliminated or combined to make the system more efficient? Just as with the district assessment system audit, not every one of the 5 features of balanced assessment systems can be answered in depth by just analyzing the classroom assessment map. One could also take a deeper dive into the summative classroom assessments listed on this map and evaluate the quality of each. We discussed quality criteria such as alignment, fairness, cognitive complexity, and other technical qualities that could be used to evaluate the summative assessments listed on the map in a earlier learning module for teachers under summative classroom assessment. One final note in closing. If you did an overlay of the district assessment system map or school assessment system map with these classroom assessment maps, the goal is to visually see how the information collected at multiple levels works together in a coherent, continuous, and comprehensive system that promotes efficiency and useful information for key decisions. Incoherence, overtesting, and/or redundancies should be eliminated. And now for a practice exercise. So the natural practice exercise for this module is to conduct a district assessment system audit. It's important that those who are supposed to use the information collected are well represented on the committee that could be gathered to do such an audit. For example, teachers from different grade spans and content areas, school and district leaders, curriculum instruction and assessment directors, special ed directors, RTI coordinators, whoever is going to need to use the assessment information from the classroom, the district, or the state should be well represented on the committee. If you look at the two tools listed on the screen here and you find them too complicated, whether that's Achieved or this other tool listed that's actually on the center's website, simplify them, right? The key point is to evaluate the district and classroom layer, particularly in this context, the district layer, in relation to the 5 features of balanced assessment systems, and then make decisions about what to remove, revise, or add. And now to wrap up and talk about the module survey. So finally, developing a high quality system of assessments is not one size fits all, right? There's different ways of designing and evaluating the quality of district assessment systems. And they can look differently once they're designed, even if they are both efficient and useful and fit all of the other criteria for balanced assessment systems. And secondly, for educational leaders interested in supporting a high quality nested system of assessments, right, in which the classroom assessment layer is also high quality, you can see the module that's hyperlinked here called Putting the Pieces Together, which was created for classroom teachers and provides a detailed discussion of classroom assessment system audits. For more information on balanced systems of assessment, you can see the policy brief hyperlinked on this screen, also listed under resources as a handout on the website where you access this video. And then finally, if you would please take a moment to complete the short survey to help us improve the quality and usefulness of this module going forward. I think it's 5 questions, and we do look at the results, and we'll be improving these modules over time. And we thank you for your time and attention.
Okay, so now that you have viewed some of the materials and will have access to the resources available to your team, it's time to think about next steps. So first, we would ask you to consider developing a district and school lead teams to promote improved practice around balanced assessment literacy. This will allow you to develop and deepen common understanding within your district and with your teachers. In terms of applying the materials in these learning modules, you will need to determine which module rollout and implementation will work best for you, your district and school. Then your teams may choose to use the district and classroom assessment system audits to determine if your system is working well or where there may be gaps. The graphic from the video does a great job in representing assessments as just a random collection or assessments that are purposeful and coherently linked together. The audits will help you to identify gaps or areas for improvement so your team can move forward with a balanced assessment system that is purposefully designed like the building on the right. A balanced assessment system, just like the video shared, is coherent, continuous, comprehensive, efficient, and useful. We have included on this slide a direct link to the module, putting the pieces together, and here you will find the additional information on the audits. So Robin's going to wrap up our time here together. Robin?
Thank you, Lorraine and Misty. Before we end our time together, it is important to acknowledge a few disclaimers. As educators, we know that a balanced assessment system is intricate. If you had a golden ticket that eliminated learning gaps, we wouldn't be here today. It's just not that easy. It's what makes teaching and learning as much of an art as a discipline. Each district and school site must consider the needs of your special student populations. The key to an effective assessment system is rooted in what the data shows. What story does it tell us? To help drive planning and instructional practices, you might have noticed that the modules do not provide information on how to select or evaluate an interim assessment. These learning modules are intended to provide an introduction of each part of a balanced assessment system. After you and your staff have a firm foundation of these components, you can dive deeper into the areas not covered within these modules. Okay, as mentioned at the end of the video, the Center for Assessment does have a module survey that they would like you to complete. And so we're going to ask you to complete that. We'll go ahead and get that link in the chat box in just a moment. And then as you are looking at providing these modules for your teacher, we encourage you to also have them fill out the module. As she said on the video, it is important for them to receive that feedback so that they can plan and customize modules. All right, so also please complete the Office of School Support Feedback Survey. Our office uses this feedback to customize future PD as well as providing support and resources needed to implement a balanced assessment system. You can scan the QR code or you can click on the link in the chat box that Misty's putting in there now. Lorraine and Misty and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule today for professional growth. We know that you are even busier than you have been in the past, which I'm sure none of you thought possible. The School Support and Improvement Team is thankful for the resiliency of the administrators we work with. Thank you for your time today, but most importantly, for what you do day in and day out to provide a safe and effective learning environment for Oklahoma students. I hope you have a great beginning of the school year. We will now stay on for any questions that you might have throughout the presentation. We have great wait time. So if you have any questions or comments that you would like to share, this would be the perfect time to do so. Okay, well, we thank you for joining us. Have a great day.